Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great week so far. If you're new here, my name is Sammy and I create mommy, lifestyle, and Leo content for fellow police officer wives and for those who are kind of wanting to gain perspective into the law enforcement community from an insider. So, my husband is a state trooper and has been for 2 years, almost exactly. And I've learned a lot in my short time as a Leo or a law enforcement officer wife. You may also hear me refer to Leo as my husband, which is a law enforcement officer. Either way, usually the context will give you, you'll be able to tell which one I'm talking about. But today I just want to talk about a few things that maybe you should never say or never ask a Leo or their spouse or partner. So, as wives and partners, we get asked questions all the time, and that's to be expected. That's part of the job because people don't understand what our reality is like, and this isn't just a 9-to-5 job. It is a lifestyle. It's something that we live 24 hours a day, and we have a huge family and a huge community, and that's one of the amazing things about being a spouse to a Leo. But here recently, I've had a few things said to me or asked of me, and I thought, people are trying to be helpful, but maybe if they knew that they shouldn't ask that, they wouldn't. And for other fellow Leos, this will be encouraging to you maybe to know that you're not the only one who fends off these questions. So one of the first things you should never ask a Leo or their spouse is, can you get me out of a ticket, or can your husband get me out of a ticket? No. The answer will always be no. There's nothing they can do about that. You wouldn't have gotten the ticket if you were obeying the law. So there's nothing they can do. Even if they wanted to, even if they felt that maybe the circumstances were a little different or something, there's nothing they can do to change that. The tickets and charges are brought by the officers present, and even if my husband was present, there's nothing he can do to change the charge. I think people have this misassumption that, because your husband's a police officer, he has some say in the law or in the effect that the ticket has on them, and that's just not the case. There's nothing they can do, so there's no point in even asking. And we have been asked multiple times if there's something that he can do or something that can be changed or done. No, just pay your ticket, or if you have a problem with it, go to court, because the judge is the one who can make the determining decision on that issue. The next thing you should never ask a Leo is about someone else's case. So we live in a very small community, and everybody pretty much knows everybody. And so some people will just be like, well, I heard so-and-so was stopped the other day. What happened there? Or I heard so-and-so went to court. Do you know what happened? Or do you know who brought the charges? Or things like that. He's not allowed to talk about it. And even if he was, he probably wouldn't, because it's not your business. So unless you're directly involved as a spouse or a child or a parent, he's not going to talk to you, and even then, he may not discuss it with you, because they do have guidelines and things that they have to go by, and it's a very tricky situation where you have laws about people's privacy and all those kinds of things. So if you have a question, go to the person directly. Don't ask my husband or any other officer. They're probably just not going to tell you. Of course, there will be that occasion where somebody does, or they feel comfortable discussing that with you, and on that rare occasion, feel thankful because that's pretty rare. The next thing that I would recommend that you not ask, and this is specifically a Leo, a wife. I heard there was a shooting. Is your husband okay? And this is a tricky one, because I understand that people are concerned and they are trying to, show that They are giving you support, and that's very kind. However, a lot of times we find out about shootings and about officer-involved accidents and that kind of thing on the news, just like you. And we do not know if our husband or, partner is involved. We don't know if they're okay. We're anxiously awaiting their call as well. We have no insider info on that. And the other night, I had someone message me and say, I heard that 2 officers were shot and 1 was killed, and this was, I believe, Claremont County. A great loss for the Blue family and for his family, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family. But I didn't even know anything had happened yet. And thankfully, when he asked, he specified that it was a deputy, and my husband is not a deputy. That would be local sheriff's office. And so I immediately knew that everything was okay, but up until that moment, I didn't even know anything had happened yet. I hadn't seen the news. I hadn't, nobody had texted me and said, hey, there's been an officer shooting, stay close to your phone, nothing like that. So if he had not specified deputy, I would have maybe been more afraid. I would have thought, oh my gosh, what happened? Is Russell okay? And that causes unnecessary concern for the wives. And the scary thing is that if my husband had been involved in a shooting and I was, dealing with all of that, that might be a really insensitive question at the time. And so just be aware of that. Be aware of the sensitivity of this, because most people don't send their spouses or partners off to work every day with the potential that they could be shot and killed or involved in an accident. They don't face that life-threatening danger at every single turn. And so we have our own ways of dealing with that. And one of those is not really watching the news, things like that. And so we are usually just as concerned, we are just as uninformed as you are. And honestly, to have a stranger or somebody who's not even close to you, send you those messages, and I understand and appreciate the concern. However, sometimes it just adds more stress to the situation. So just be aware. Just be aware of the person's involvement. Be aware of their feelings. Be aware that we oftentimes are just as anxious as you are. We don't know either. We don't get a play-by-play from our cops. We don't. And sometimes we're lucky to hear it at 4 a.m. when they come home and crash in bed. We don't get all of that information. And so just be aware of that when you're concerned. And of course, when you're a family member or a close friend, that's of course a different story. But if you're just an acquaintance or somebody from the community or something like that, just be conscious. Just be aware of that. And we always appreciate the concern and the thoughts for us, but like I said, just be aware. Just be cautious, because that's a very touchy subject. So another thing that I'm going to address is I have people message me all the time and say, I saw an accident so-and-so, such a place up here. Do you know if Russell's there? No, I don't. Most of us Leos have no idea what our officer is doing throughout the day, and we may not know at the end of the day. We know our officers are out there to serve and protect, and we know that they are involved in accidents, they're involved in domestic disputes, they're involved in search warrants, they're involved with, people's worst moments, and whatever that may entail, we don't know that. When they go to work and put on those boots and strap on that vest, we're clueless until they get home. And then even then, we don't always know all the details of their day. And I think part of that is depending on your officer, and other Leos know this, depending on your officer, they may or may not talk about it. There may be situations they talk about more than others, but we certainly have no idea if they are involved in a situation right then. they're fully committed to what they're doing, and their last thought is to call wifey at home and say, hey, guess where I'm at? Guess what just happened? They're involved in paperwork and cuffing and searching and all of those kinds of things. So we don't know. And often my response when somebody asks me, is no. Even sometimes when I do know, because it's a stressful job and it's a stressful workplace, and they don't need to talk to or explain to anyone what they did that day. They just really don't. Sometimes the last thing they want to do is talk about it, and they just want to come home and just have some peace and quiet and just relax, and that's okay. And it's okay for everyone not to know what's going on. So just be aware of that. The officer is not going to give you a play-by-play of the situation. Oftentimes they can't. Again, privacy laws, that comes in with all of that. And so I guess my annoyance with it is that a lot of times I know that they're not asking because they're concerned. They're asking because they want to be in the know. They want to know what's going on in town. And I understand that. I understand wanting to know what's going on, but officers have a difficult enough job. They don't need 3 or 4 people, sometimes more than that, wanting to know, who is involved and who's there and how long is it going to take to clean up and how long is it going to take to get the investigation over with and all those things. It's just not your business. And the thing is there will be cases that he will talk about. There will be funny stories that they have sometimes, or wonderful stories that they have sometimes of support from local people, the community, things like that. And he always is willing and happy to share those. But when it comes to the everyday job and the everyday grind, as they say, do you come home and talk about the coffee that you poured 374 times at work? So these are all things that can really wear on an officer, and just because over time it just gets to be draining. It's like, okay, I'm away from the job now, I want to take a break, and that's like same with, when I said that we watch live PD. Occasionally we do, but when he's home, he's ready to decompress. Last thing he wants to do is go watch more crazy people. And so just be aware, just be conscious and kind and thoughtful of their job and the stress that it brings, and just be more conscious and aware of the questions you're asking. Maybe instead of asking what happened over there on such and such road, say, how are you? Are you doing okay? Are you tired? I'm sure you're tired. Can I bake you some cookies? Things like that, that actually check on the well-being of the officer, and instead of just being really invasive of their process every day. They deal with that constantly at work, and sometimes they just need support, not more questions. So that's just a few of the things. I may do a part 2 to this later on as I grow as a Leo wife and learn more about the job. I'm sure there will be other things that I will think of. But just we love the concern and we love the care that we are shown by our community and by our friends and family. But just be conscious of boundaries and be conscious of the difficulty of their job. Sometimes on a crash they're dealing with a fatal, and they're having to deal with the family and break the news to that family, and they're dealing with really stressful situations. And so just be conscious and aware of that. And if you're thinking of them and you pass an accident and you're thinking of them, shoot them a message and say, hey, I just was thinking of you, I hope you're safe, and move on, deal with it in that way. And then if he's willing to share, he will do that, or she will do that themselves. They don't need any encouragement in that area, because trust me, when they have a good story to tell, they're gonna share it. So that's just my few tips for today. And if you're not already, follow me on social media. You'll get more of an everyday look at my life, especially on Instagram. I'm really active over there. I also have a blog and have a little bit more Leo content over there if you would like to follow that. Everything is linked below, and I will leave my other Leo video linked, and I hope you will stick around and subscribe. It's completely free and just notifies you when I upload. So I hope you will stick around for the next video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!